It's Hyper Halloween!
Trilogy of Terror. A name that is sort of generic by today's standards, but don't let that fool you. Trilogy of Terror has 3 suspenseful stories that'll stick with you long after the film ends. It was a made-for-TV anthology film that came out in 1975. One of the cooler aspects of the film is that all 3 stories star the same actress, Karen Black. I swear, I didn't even plan on discussing multiple movies that had Karen Black in them. I mean, granted, one was a movie she was actually in, and the other was a reference to a movie she starred in, but still, I didn't intend for this much Karen Black discussion for this year's Hyper Halloween. It just sort of worked out that way. Anyway, back to Trilogy of Terror. Each of the 3 short films is named after Karen Black's character from their respective short film. The first movie, Julie, features a quiet college professor that is seemingly antagonized by an aggressive male student named Chad. Chad wants to sow his oats, so to speak, but the co-eds on campus aren't doing anything for him. He notices his English professor walk by and thinks, I wonder what she looks like without clothes on. I'm guessing that was normal in 1975, but whatever. He approaches her to go out, but she says no because the rules say that they can't. He ends up spying on her through her window and asks her out the next day. I guess Julie plays a little loose with the rules though, because she ends up going to a drive-in to see a French film with him. Now, if you didn't think Chad was a creep yet, then get a load of this. Chad ends up drugging Julie and then takes her to a hotel to take naughty pics of her. He ends up blackmailing Julie with said pictures, making her do unspeakable things with him. This short does have a twist ending though. One day, Julie decides that she's had enough of Chad. She tells him that she orchestrated the entire thing. She knew she could lead him on, and that's what she did. Apparently she does this frequently with young men. She allows them to have their way with her, and then she gets bored when they no longer satisfy her craving. She poisons Chad, and he dies. Julie then burns down Chad's apartment with him in it, making it look like an accident. Days later, we see Julie take a newspaper clipping and put it into a scrapbook of sorts. The scrapbook shows her other victims, so we get a glimpse into how many times she's done this. The movie ends with a new student, Arthur, showing up for tutoring, and presumably the sequence of events start again. The second film is called Millicent and Therese. The titular characters are twin sisters that don't like each other very much. As such, Karen Black actually plays both roles in this short. This short starts out with Millicent, or Millie as she's called, writing in her diary. We get a lot of exposition from Millie when she's writing or interacting with other people. The first conversation is with one of Therese's lovers. Millie insinuates that Therese is evil. She tells him that Therese seduced their father and may have even killed their mother. Therese is apparently also into Satanism and voodoo as well, and she's keeping Millie locked up inside of the family mansion, even though we do get a scene with Millie outside. Even though Millie is clearly biased, the viewers soon see that the sisters are polar opposites of one another. While Therese is promiscuous, Millie is prudish. After Millie tries to convince Therese's lover that Therese is evil, she calls Dr. Ramsey. Dr. Ramsey is the family therapist and seems to be helping Therese through some stuff. The doctor comes to the house after Millie's call, and Therese comes on to him. Ramsey rejects her advances, and Therese kicks him out of the house. She then yells at Millie through the door to her room and falls asleep. We then see Millie write a message about needing to kill Therese in order to cleanse the house, and she'll do it using Satanism and voodoo that Therese likes. Millie collects some of Therese's personal belongings and creates a voodoo doll. Dr. Ramsey calls again and tells Millie that they need to talk, but Millie dismisses him and hangs up. Then she takes the voodoo doll and a large pin out. The next day, we see Dr. Ramsey arrive at the house. He enters the house without permission and immediately calls out to Millie. Millie doesn't answer, so Dr. Ramsey searches through the house. He ultimately finds Therese dead in her room with the voodoo doll lying next to her. The doc calls 911 and says the cause of death is unknown. As paramedics begin to take Therese away, he reveals that Therese's name was actually Therese Millicent Larimore, and that she had the most advanced case of dual personality he had ever seen. The third and final short is called Amelia, and it's best known for featuring the Zuni fetish doll. It even says it on my VHS copy of Trilogy of Terror. The short starts off with Amelia returning to her home with a package. She opens it to reveal the Zuni fetish doll. It's a birthday present for her boyfriend Arthur, who's apparently into this kind of stuff. The little Zuni fetish doll even comes equipped with a very sharp spear. Amelia calls her mother, and we soon find out that Amelia's mother is very overbearing and controlling, which really stresses Amelia out. She even breaks down into tears because she wants to go out and enjoy life, but her mother wants her within arm's reach of her. To defuse the awkward situation, Amelia describes the backstory of the Zuni fetish doll. Apparently, it's imbued with a hunter spirit, and the chain on the doll keeps the spirit at bay. If removed, the spirit and the doll become one. As soon as Amelia stops talking to her mother, she decides to take a bath. As she places the doll on the table, of course, the gold chain comes off. After the bath, Amelia calls Arthur and cancels on him so she can spend time with her overbearing mother. She then starts to cook a steak dinner, but when she walks into the living room, she realizes that the doll is gone. After finding the chain on the table, she reaches her hand under the couch and injures it on the doll's spear. Amelia goes to look for the doll under the couch, but she hears footsteps. After jokingly asking if it's the doll, she searches more. Amelia hears more and more noises and searches around the house. She goes into the kitchen and looks around and notices that the knife that she was using to prepare her meal is now missing. And that's when she catches movement out of the corner of her eye. She searches another room, still reassuring herself that dolls don't move. She then comes face to face with the Zuni fetish doll as it starts stabbing the living hell out of her leg. The rest of this short is basically a game of cat and mouse between Amelia and the doll. The doll chases her, she hides, the doll breaks into wherever she is, rinse and repeat. Amelia does try to best the doll in a variety of ways though. She tries to drown it, and I'm not joking there. She traps it in a suitcase, she jabs it in the head a dozen times with an ice pick, and then ultimately throws it into an oven where she's preparing her dinner. Poor steak. Amelia does show smarts with her idea, but it's almost immediately counteracted by something stupid. For instance, she runs into a room without a lock on the door. One may think that the doll can't open doors, but it proves it can. She does this several times. Another instance of stupidity is when she traps the doll in the suitcase and tries to escape out of the door of her apartment. She can't figure out the deadbolt on the door, I guess mostly because it's stuck, but then she immediately tries to go out the window. I'm not sure if she was on the first floor or not, but it's just very silly to me. Of course, the funniest thing she does is she tries to grab the doll's blade with her hand. Amelia eventually throws the doll in the oven, and it dies. Amelia breathes a sigh of relief and opens up the oven. We then see her scream as something comes out. Next, we see her in her room. She reaches for her phone and calls her mom. She apologizes to her for the way that she acted and tells her that she'd like to spend the evening together at her place. We then see Amelia rip the door lock off the door and then crouch down on the floor. She's now holding the knife that the doll had and she's stabbing it into the floor and smiling. Her teeth now resemble the Zuni fetish doll's teeth. And that's all the stories that the Trilogy of Terror has to offer. Karen Black is phenomenal in all three short films. The wide range of acting ability she displays is nothing short of amazing. Whether she's playing a character that is stoic, free-spirited, or downright terrified, she does it very well. In fact, in the third short, Karen has to carry the entire short by herself. You never hear the person on the other end of the phone, so you had to infer what's happening based on Karen Black's expression and her emotions, and she does a fantastic job at this. The makeup and attire that Karen Black uses is also really effective. It was hard for me to tell that it was her in all three films during my first viewing. Although, to be fair, my first viewing was a VHS copy, so the footage was dark. And I guess I wasn't really paying attention to it 100%. With my most recent viewing though, I still contend it's a little hard to tell, especially with Millie and Therese. All three shorts remind me of something you would see in the Night Gallery show. Each short set up a crazy story and ends with a twist. Speaking of Night Gallery, for those that don't know, Night Gallery is an anthology-based TV show that serves as a follow-up of sorts to The Twilight Zone. Fun fact, Trilogy of Terror was actually written by Richard Matheson and William F. Nolan. Richard Matheson wrote several episodes for The Twilight Zone, so this movie feeling like a Night Gallery or Twilight Zone does seem completely justified given that one of the writers had written similar content before. I am having trouble picking a favorite of the three short films. While the Zuni fetish doll story is the most memorable of the bunch, for obvious reasons, I do think that it's the weakest story-wise. I really like the first movie's plot, but the twist really does come out of nowhere. There's no foreshadowing that led us to believe that Julie is a murderer. The second movie has more foreshadowing in it when the doctor warns Therese that the hatred she has for her sister has to stop, or else she'll destroy herself. That line only makes sense if the twins are the same person. Actually, quick fun fact about the first short film. Chad is actually played by Karen Black's then-husband, Robert Burton. He actually convinced Karen to take the role in this movie. Anyway, back to my choice. I think I will say that the Amelia short was my favorite. The Zuni fetish doll is an amazing movie monster. Its hyper movements and sadistic nature make it a scary movie monster. The Amelia short also has some of the funniest scenes of the overall movie, whether it's wrapping the doll in a towel and trying to drown it, trying to grab a knife with her fingers, or flinging the doll across the room when it's biting her. I got a kick out of most of her actions. But I will say that the Julie short film is a close second. While the movie performed very well, it didn't receive a sequel until 1996. Trilogy of Terror 2 is another made-for-TV film that follows a similar formula to the first film in that there are three shorts that feature the same lead actress. I haven't seen that film, but it does look like the Zuni fetish doll makes a comeback since he's featured on the cover. Trilogy of Terror is considered a cult film, and it has recently received a Blu-ray release in 2018 from Kino Lorber. Kino Lorber is a film distributor known for re-releasing low-budget films, films from earlier time periods, and world cinema. One more fun fact before I wrap things up. Karen Black has been in many cult films and horror films in general. She even had a short part in Full Moon's Ooga Booga. Ooga Booga features a similar tribal doll that is possessed by a spirit. There's a scene where it goes after Karen Black's character. In that scene, she grabs a knife, crouches down, and waits for him to attack. The stance that she takes is similar to the end of the Amelia short. It's an awesome callback to a great scene. It should go without saying, but I think Trilogy of Terror is an amazing anthology film, and I recommend it for fans of horror. Go check it out if you're interested. And that wraps up this year's month-long Hyp3r Halloween. Hopefully you enjoyed going through another 31 films with me. I wish you a happy and Hyp3r Halloween. Stay safe out there, and, as always, thank you for watching.